Yeah. The Houthi mayor said there are callings from the followers of the regime of Saleh, the former president Ali Abdullah, and the mercenaries of the enemy to start the revolution against Hungary. Here we are, the hungry ones, the revolutionary, those who will decide for Yemen, those who are fighting in order to bring glory to the country and to be set out of the control of the Saudis, the Americans, the Zionists. Control of Israel, United States, and the Saudis. So they took over the streets of Sana'a, protesting against the coalition led by the Saudis and the deteriorating conditions of the country due to the war. Houthi leaders were against the alliance with the United States. This comes from Hispan TV. Ansarollah wants peace to end the attack against Yemen. The Yemenis in the Ayah province, the leader of the Popular Movement of Yemen, Dossier, advocates for peace that would stop conflict in his country. We will never give up against our enemies. We will create peace that will stop the occupation and aggression on Yemen, as stated by this city in Al-Masirah. According to Ansarollah's leader, being quiet and accepting the demands would be running from responsibilities, and they don't bring anything to peace. For this comes he criticized the sabotage of Saudi Arabia and the delegation of President Abdul Rabbul Mansur Hadi in the peace process for Yemen, while emphasizing the enemy opposed with all force to the establishment of peace, while the negotiation wanted to take some measures. September 6th, a new conversation in Geneva was going to take place. However, Saudi Arabia did not allow a plane to land of the United Nations in Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, that was going to bring the delegation to attend this. We will never give up to our enemies, and we demand peace that will stop occupation in Yemen, according to the leader of Ansarollah. Well, so this seems to be a very complicated war, where international organizations seem to turn their backs. Israel shot against the protests in Gaza, killing 6 Palestinians. Today is Friday, of course. It's a day to kill Palestinians. These are the stats. Palestinians gathered in the hospital protesting in the border area of Gaza, the border with Israel. Palestinians crying over the bodies of people killed. Gases. Drones dropping gas bombs in the protest. So they strike with everything they got. Let's see if we see a drone, but there's a clear area where there's a drone that is throwing some tear gas. This is extremely specialized and aggressive. That's the drone. It has a bomb, they choose a target, and then they let it fall. It's not a single one, of course. People running to the ambulance because the effects of those gas are not pleasant. Soldiers killed 6 Palestinians, including 2 children, who were around dozens of people. This was stated by health workers. The Army of Israel stated that their troops used real fire and aerial attacks after explosives and stones were sent to him, trying to break the border with Hamas. The never-ending story of every Friday.
Los habitantes de Gaza, como todos los viernes, entierran a los palestinos.
People in Gaza burying killed Palestinians during the protest. Palestinians killed there. Women crying in the funeral. Women and men carrying coffins.
¿A quién entierran?
Who are they burying? Two children, one 12, the other one 14, killed by Israeli soldiers while they were protesting at the border. Palestinian children were part of the thousands of people protesting in Gaza, and the Israeli army stated that they had to use real fire with the raw weapons and an aerial attack after they were hit with the stones to stop blocking the fence of the enclave controlled by Hamas. 7 people were killed, 505 wounded, 89 of them due to shots of Israeli weapons. Protests have taken place weekly during the last 6 months at the border. Reuters state that at least 190 Palestinians have been killed since the beginning of the protest in Gaza to demand the rights for the lands lost by the Israeli invasion and the flexibilization of the blockade of both Israel and Egypt. The agenda of the United Nations concerned about security, taking out the members of the United Nations in Gaza. Ex-UNRWA Ismail Altela said demonstrators arrived at the Aldera Hotel and wanted to send a clear message, a peaceful message. They sat in the street in front of their car and demanded to return to their jobs. They just want to work again and to have the job security they used to have before.
La Agencia de las Naciones Unidas que apoya a los refugiados palestinos reiteró parte de su personal.
The HNCR took away members of their personnel because they were concerned about their security. These are the official statements of the United Nations. Anger has increased in Gaza during the last weeks on Palestinian workers of UNRWA. Based on a financial crisis, there have been layoffs in Gaza, which have led to more strikes and protests. So they're there, and they don't have enough means for what's happening. The director of operation and more personnel were at Gaza, and their operations are going to continue there. A source said that 13 international workers were taken away. Palestinians protesting against the Jewish nation due to the repression that takes place every Friday. Palestinians in Gaza marching and protesting against the state law of the nation of Israel. Palestinians met in the Beit Lahia border as part of their weekly protest demanding their lands lost by the expansion of Israel in 1948 war, as well as the flexibilization of Israel and Egypt with their economic blockade. This is the Hut city in Israel. They protest against the new law of the state nation of Israel in Bram of the West Bank, affecting the lives of Palestinians who fought with Israeli soldiers. Approved by Knesset, the parliament, only the Jews have the right to self-determination in Israel. And the status of Arabs goes down. And they don't approve the official language, Arabic.
Bien, gracias. Su discurso a la Asamblea General de la ONU el jueves, Netanyahu dijo que las condenas a la
Netanyahu
ley
said
fueron ataques
that these were
extravagantes, que ellos estaban
terrible
cumpliendo
attacks.
con la ley.
They were doing
Muchos de los
what the
ciudadanos
law
árabes de Israel
required.
también se identificaron
Many
como
soldiers
palestinos,
also
constituyen
identified
una quinta
themselves
parte de los 9
as
millones de ciudadanos de
Palestinians,
Israel. Y la ley israelí
part
les
of the
otorga
citizens of
igualdad de
Israel,
derechos,
where
pero
they
muchos dicen que
have
enfrentan
gender
discriminación
equality,
y son tratados como
even
ciudadanos de
though they are
segunda clase.
treated as second-class citizens.
Los palestinos dicen que las tropas israelíes mataron a 3
Israeli
personas,
troops
incluido un
killed
niño, en
3
la
people,
protesta en
including
Gaza.
1 child in Gaza.
Y algunos de ellos objeto de una bomba de
Some
alrededor
of them
de
were
12
subject to a
centímetros por
bomb
15
of
que le entró
around
en su
12 by
cabeza.
15 that hit this person's
Estaba
head.
sangrando, no pudimos controlarlo, estaba sangrando
He was
mucho.
bleeding. We couldn't
Su
control the
cerebro
bleeding.
se le salía por las fracturas. Ese fue el testimonio de los palestinos a ver el cuerpo del joven. La muerte del palestino fue cuando el ataque
The death of the
lacrimógeno
Palestinian
disparado al
took
cuerpo,
place
las tropas israelíes
after
dieron en la
the
cabeza.
gas bombs hit
Portavoz
the
del
head.
Ministerio de Salud de Gaza dijo que el
The
incidente había
spokesman
ocurrido
said
cerca
that
de
the
la valla
incident
fronteriza
took
en el
place
norte, en la franja de
near the
Gaza,
wall in Gaza,
donde 24 personas
where
más resultaron
24
heridas.
people were wounded as well.
Por su parte, el vocero del ejército israelí
The
dijo que 1000
spokesperson of the
habitantes de
Israeli
Gaza se habían
army
reunido
said
cerca
that
de
the
la frontera,
1,000
cerca del
inhabitants
cruce de pasajeros
were
de
near
Erez.
the border in
Arrojaron
Erez.
piedras y otros objetos y las
They
tropas
threw stones and
se
other
vieron obligadas a
objects,
actuar porque
and
también quemaban
troops
neumáticos.
needed to act because they were
Utilizaron medios
also
antidisturbio,
burning
incluidos gases
tires.
lacrimógenos,
They
balas
used
de
tear
goma y, cuando fue
gas
necesario, dispararon armas
and
de fuego,
other types
admitieron
of
al final.
weapons, and at the end they did shoot real bullets.
تقريبا 12 سم 15 سم داخله في راسه.
Es muy importante
It is very
para mí que la
important
gente
for
de Gaza
me,
vea que hay personas
for
en
people in
Israel
Gaza
que
to
están
see other people in
conmocionadas
Israel
y peladas apoyando la causa.
who are
Ellos
supporting
apoyan
this.
su lucha. Esto es extremadamente importante para nosotros porque
This is
creemos
extremely
que la única
important for
forma en
us
que
because
podemos
we believe
construir
the
una
only way
sociedad
of
basada en la
building a
igualdad,
society
en los
built on
derechos humanos,
equality, human rights,
si comprenden unos a los otros.
is by understanding
Por
one
otro lado,
another.
no somos sino las víctimas en este caso. Estamos
We are
defendiendo
the
nuestra
victims
tierra,
here.
la lluvia de
We
gas,
are
no es
defending our
cualquier
land.
gas.
Take a look at the gas.
Ese es realmente especializado para que no lo
This is a
aguanten.
specialized gas.
Bueno, los viernes,
Fridays,
el cuento de nunca acabar.
and the never-ending story.
Una de las personas que protestaban en la frontera israelí
One of the demonstrators, Gal Kokabili, said,
es muy importante para mí.
"It
que
is
la
very
gente de
important
Gaza
for
vea que
me,
hay
for
personas
people
en
in
Israel
Gaza, to see that there are people in
conmocionadas
Israel who are
y
shocked
apoyan su causa.
and who support your
Ellos
cause.
apoyan su lucha.
They
Esto es
support your struggle.
extremadamente importante,
This is extremely
porque nosotros creemos
important
que la única forma en que podemos
because we
construir
believe
una
that the
sociedad
only
basada en la
way
igualdad
of
y los
building a
derechos humanos
society based on equality and
tenemos
human
que
rights
comprendernos entre
is
nosotros.
understanding each other,
a israelíes y palestinos,
Israeli and
que no somos
Palestinians.
sus enemigos.
We are not your enemies.
Este es el cuento de todos los viernes.
But
Fuerzas
either way,
israelíes
this is what
mataron a
happens
3
every
palestinos,
Friday.
incluido un
Israeli
niño,
forces kill 3
en la protesta
Palestinians, including
fronteriza
a
en Gaza
child,
este viernes
in the
5 de octubre.
struggles in the border,
Funcionario palestino
according
acaba de
to Palestinians worker.
El ejército israelí dijo que estaba
The Israeli army
defendiéndose
stated that they were
contra los miembros de
defending
la
each other
multitud
against the
que
members of the
lanzaban
crowd
objetos explosivos
that
a
were
sus soldados.
throwing explosives to their soldiers.
Otro niño muerto.
Another child killed.
Y entre los muertos, como dijimos, un niño de 12 años asesinado
A
a tiros por las
12-year-old
fuerzas
was
israelíes,
killed
y al menos otras
by
126
Israeli
personas
forces,
heridas de
and
diferente gravedad, pero todas
128
por
people were
balas
wounded as well.
Los disparos del ejército israelí han matado al menos a 195
At least 195
desde que
Palestinians have been
comenzaron las
killed since the
protestas
beginning of the
en la frontera.
protest
En marzo,
in
dice el
March.
cuerpo médico de Gaza.
According to Gaza physicians, a Palestinian sniper killed an Israeli soldier. Demonstrators demand the end of the fight because Egyptians now have the same role, the same strategy as Israel, and the right to return to their homelands of their ancestral families, their grandparents, where they were expelled when they created Israel.
It's extremely important for us because we believe that the only way that we can build a society that is based on equality.
Demonstrations, according to Galvin, it is very important for people of Gaza to see there are people in Israel that are shocked and saddened by this. We support their cause, we support their fight. It is extremely important for us because we believe that the only way in which we can create a society is based on equality and human rights, and this is how they should understand that we are not their enemy. So Israeli forces killed 3 Palestinians, including 1 child, in these new protests that take place every Friday, always showing these fatal results. So every Friday this happens. This is Tinduf. I was there in Tinduf.
Reunirme con los polisarios. Se entraba por la capital de Argelia, donde había una escala en Tinduf.
There was,
luego, bueno, todo terreno cuando había suerte.
Well, we had to go through Tinduf and then other places. And it's a very difficult situation. Rosalia Sanz, YouTuber, on her channel Negatividad Cero, spoke about the genocide in Sahara. Saharians have their own state. They are a democratic republic, also known as Western Sahara, acknowledged by Venezuela with an embassy in Caracas. Of course, I have been with the Sahrawis twice. First in the 70s, and then they were fighting, and I returned. Tindu was a place to rest before going south. Where you see the word Argelia, that was the toughest zone, specifically when sandstorms hit. It's great that our colleague shared this with us. So we went to the capital, and if you were able to enter, they would take you inside. Not everyone is able to stay at the desert, specifically when you're near a war front. There's a secret well for water. It's difficult to drink water. You have to use a specific method. The war is tough. They say Sahara doesn't forgive the weak. They also say Sahara Matumba, which means Sahara is not for sale, and they continue fighting. This is a graphic representation of the genocide. Everyone knows that this is happening. This is the Sahrawi flag. Everyone knows that it's happening here. And the media, controlled by American interests and Zionistic interests, never speak about this. There is a refugee camp that has held them for 4 years. They're unable to leave this place. They have been confined to live in a hostile city in the south of Algeria, in Sahara. This is the story of the Sahrawi ethnicity, a story that I will tell you so that you can know what has happened to these people. The Sahrawi people lived in Western Sahara, a place that was a Spanish colony until 1975, when the United Nations gave the territory to the Kingdom of Morocco, Hassan II. Based on this, Spain left Sahrawis to live their own life in their colony. People of Spanish nationality speaking Spanish allowed the Morocco army to attack the territory led by the Moroccan king. It was the last African territory to be decolonized by European powers since the end of the 19th century. Morocco had become independent in 1856, so the Kingdom of Morocco was created. In 1995, due to the United Nations, they invaded Sahara, where tens of thousands of Sahrawis were taken away under duress to the inside of the desert, to the territory of Algeria, and confined to refugee camps near Tindouf. Sahrawis walked there with only the things they had at hand. Most of them were pregnant women, the elder, and children, barely any men. This was the beginning of the nightmare of these people exiled by force, and that ever since survives in this corner of the harshest desert in the world. Some remained in Western Sahara, in the area occupied by Morocco, and it has been denounced many times that there is a constant violation of the human rights for the Sahrawi population under the flag of Morocco. A population that suffers the indifference of the international community, while Morocco acts repressively against them. Sahrawis are considered inferior. That's why they don't have access to work, and they are dominated and controlled by the Moroccan army that decides their own will. They torture them and make them go missing. They're abandoned in a remote place to die of either hunger or thirst. The invasion of Morocco has brought thousands of colonists in Sahara, so the Sahara population is the smallest by the day. A massacred people with the intention of being exterminated, and thus avoid the referendum for Sahara's independence that contemplated the process of decolonization. West Sahara is a strategic place with phosphate mines, the biggest in the world, as well as reserves of oil, gas, uranium, gold, and diamonds too. Their coasts are very important for fishery. Their bank is one of the biggest one in the world. The current king, Mohammed VI, takes advantage of phosphate and exports this product. Their main commercial partner is the United States. According to Forbes, Mohammed VI has a great fortune due to the exploitation of phosphate. That's why he studied in Brussels under Charles Delors, who was the president of the European Commission, and he also studied in Nice in France, where he became a doctor in 1993 for his thesis called Cooperation Between the Maghreb and the European Union. He is an honoris causa doctor by the Washington University of the United States in 2000, and many other awards as Grand Masters of different Mason orders, among which Great Master of the Throne, a Great Cross of the Order of Charles III, or also the award of Queen Elizabeth. When his father died, the former king of Spain cried. The invasion of West Sahara was planned and organized from the United States with a clear strategy to kill Sahrawis slowly. A strategy of death that violates 100 resolutions of the United Nations, including a resolution from 1960 that states people subjected internationally means a denial of fundamental human rights. All the peoples have the access of self-determination. A country in a process of decolonization is not subject to the sovereignty of another state. Of course, it's very easy to create resolutions that are not going to be fulfilled, and for the United Nations to be part of the genocide. As the fact that Kofi Annan signed the following: the United Nations will not solve the problem of West Sahara. Henry Kissinger, State Secretary of the United States and Nobel Peace Prize winner, who said that Sahara had to be part of Morocco. Kissinger planned and provided advisory to the king, and the United States provided equipment and weaponry by creating the Operation Invasion, favoring the interests of the United States over the region. Americans were those who had organized this exile by leading them to Algeria, and they were behind the so-called Green March that invaded Sahara with 350,000 civilians and 25,000 soldiers of Morocco. The cost of this was taken by Saudi Arabia. The result of this military operation, half Sahrawis were forced to leave the territory because the forces of Morocco even used napalm, white phosphorus, and fragmentation bombs against them. Other bombs were launched over the refugees in the desert, and thousands of people were killed as well. Bombing with forbidden weaponry that reduced the possibility of Sahrawis to return to their place of origin. They also built the so-called Wall of Shame, 27 kilometers, that covers the majority of the territory. This is watched by thousands of soldiers with the state-of-the-art technology, with the objective of keeping Sahrawis and exiled outside of this zone. A plan executed with the objective of disappearing the Sahrawi people with a fence around their territory. The nomads were ripped off from their camels. Then people were killed. This was the MO of the repression. People apprehended for decades, subject to torture and sexual abuse, trying to degrade and annihilate just because they were Sahrawis. People were questioned, interrogated, and tortured, naked and against the wall, even a stone, a crime against humanity. The Moroccan army also used tear gas, attacked their homes, burned their houses, stole their livestock, something that is still used by them today. Those who denounce the situation often face the consequences of violence and persecution every time they peacefully vindicate the self-determination of the Sahrawi people, as well as the right of having their own nation in their own land. A strategy where thousands of colonists continue arriving at this territory, and thousands of Sahrawis are under a stage of frustration, persecution, and death. Currently, the condition is still unsolved because they don't want to do it. This area is still occupied militarily, while those in refugee camps suffer from diseases, especially anemia and epidemics that have a high rate of debt, especially for children. Those exiled depend on humanitarian support to survive. Aid that has decreased due to the economic crisis during the last years. A perfectly established plan to stop the Sahrawis while still violating the human rights. People missing, tortures to those apprehended, and repression have brought death and blood to the Sahrawis, and their voice has been shut. Victims resist, waiting to eventually return to the land they were taken away from due to a monarch regime that is permanently attacking them and that wanted to take its perversary to the last state. 260,000 Sahrawis who live under precarious conditions for many years still hope to return home. Story that continues hidden on purpose. They don't want this to be known, but it should be heard and given in consideration. That's why I am telling you there's a story. There's a story of a silent genocide of a people. The people where I was born, because I am also a Sahrawi. And the people I played with, those who were my peers at the school. The name of the school was La Paz, the peace. But I also had to respect Morocco. I have family in Morocco. And they are also victims of the monarchy, and this should be set clear. I'm not attacking their people, I'm attacking their king. I want to be the voice of a people, the Sahrawi people, and to make their suffering clear. An exemplary people that should never be forgotten, that have been subject to the elite of a genocide of this size that continues until today. All my love is with the Sahrawis. I always remember. They are always in my heart, and they have marked my life and will continue with this. I completely agree with Rosalía's answer. I was in that war front twice, and that's an injustice that's really difficult to watch. When an old power leaves, then there's a new nation created in the limits that it occupied. But no, everyone was against them. And here the phosphate that is necessary for agriculture, amongst other reaches. I was 2,000 kilometers inside, and then they asked me if I wanted to come back. It's an unforgettable experience. There's so much sand, and it heats the cars. It's difficult to fight in these conditions, where you could be just close to this. So it's one of the toughest war fronts that I've seen. They asked me if I wanted to come back, and I did. Victory should be there, because this is a crime against humanity. When a power withdraws, then it cannot be kept, regardless of what the NATO does, and all the accomplices that played and did their things against their people who speak Spanish like we do. This is still a problem. And from here, from the bottom of my heart, as a former teammate in difficult situations, because as they say, the doesn't forgive the weak. I say, Sahura Matumban. Sahura cannot be solved. This was Walter Martinez. Director, the floor is all yours.